that's a shipbuilding is a real rich tradition. It's an art and being carried on apparently in your family, which is really interesting. We'll want to talk about that, but it's a beautiful ship, the Anna, right?
The Anne.
The Anne,
Yep,
that's right.
named
that's
after my mom.
All right, very good indeed. Yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah, welcome. Welcome very much to Conversations. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program Captain Reid Stowe. And he's an adventurer, I might be fair to say. Captain's courageous. He's a seafaring man. He's got an incredibly interesting story to tell up until now, and one that perhaps is even going to be surpassing all of that as we begin to look ahead into his adventurous plans for the future. And Reid, welcome very, very much to Conversations.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. It really is.
Okay.
We saw your SchoonerAnne the other day parked over on 23rd Street here, as they say, or berthed, I guess it
Right.
is in nautical terms. But it's a schooner, and you're going to be able to fill us in on that and so forth. But I wonder if you could. You're a seafaring man. You said you spent a good deal, if not the majority of your life, on the high seas and so forth, sailing.
That's right.
And you got an interesting story, and you got ideas that you're advancing now as you begin to look ahead. But could you start with your own background, please? Where you were born and raised, a little bit, your family, that sort of thing, education, and then we'll get into a discussion of this interesting projects that precede you and are extending you out into the future, exciting project. Could you share your own background, please?
Sure. My parents are from North Carolina, both of my parents, and my dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up traveling all over the world every year, moving to a different place. But our family went back every summer to North Carolina to visit the grandparents. And my mother's father organized the building of a big vacation cottage on the inland waterway near the South Carolina border, in the pine trees, behind the marsh, the sand dunes, and then the ocean. So our family built that house together. When I was a young child, my granddad was there with his sons and daughters building this house.
Physically building. Hewing
we
the
built
wood
the house.
From the wood and everything?
We
Hewing the wood
built the house. And there in North Carolina, because they have hurricanes, the houses are built on big poles.
Is that a fact?
Up off the ground, so that when the tide rises during a hurricane, it doesn't sweep the house away.
Yeah, right.
So we built that house as I was a child growing up. I saw my dad and uncles building the house, and we lived in the middle of the work during the summers. And my dad and uncles liked boats and built little boats and took them out on the waterway and out into the marsh. And so since I was a child, I've been around construction and tools and boat building and woodworking and the nature and the sea.
I see. All right. And did that go back, your family go back? Were they ship building or
No, not at all. It was purely a vacation for my
was seen as
dad
a
and
vacation.
uncles who were military men.
And your primary residence was in North Carolina also, or was it somewhere else in the country?
No, because
you
my
moved
father
around.
was in the Air Force. So we lived in Germany for 3 years and in the Philippines for 2 years and all over the U.S. in different places. But every summer we went back to Granddad's, the family's beach cottage, and we spent the summer there.
You know, I wonder, that's what they call a military brat, you know, the loving term they do for that when you move around. But that's a pretty good background in order to get you some knowledge of the world pretty well, living with military around the world like that. You get a pretty good feel for the world rather than being in just one place a whole while. What do you think? You've lived through that. You think it was a good experience? You
it opened our minds.
It does.
Traveling is good because you see a lot of different cultures around the world and a lot of different people, and I guess you don't remain attached to one place. You see a lot of different things. So I grew up traveling and felt like we were on an adventure growing up, and so that's why I continued to travel as in my adult life. Yeah,
you've been traveling a good deal of the time aboard the ship. Now, you built, you and your family, your brother, I think, or maybe you could share with us, you built this schooner, 70 feet long, 60 tons, 16 feet across, schooner, lovingly put together, a real seaworthy vessel, and you did this yourselves. You built this at a shipyard in North Carolina or something, or could you share, or how was that done?
Well, really, my brothers and I built surfboards through high school.
Okay, you were a surfer?
I grew up surfing. That was my favorite thing. And we built surfboards, and that was our after-school job or our after-school work, was making surfboards. We learned how to make surfboards, and we had our surf shop in our family garage.
North Carolina.
When we traveled. Part of the time it was in Illinois, and part of the time in Arizona.
There's not much surfing in Illinois.
No, but you have your summers and your vacations and your dreams.
Right. Okay,
and
yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. So, in the surfboards, are they made of plastic by and large, or something?
Styrofoam and fiberglass.
Yeah, right. And you'd like to do the surfing. You still do that?
Well, I haven't done much in recent years, but yes, I still consider myself a surfer.
It's a heck of a sport,
I
isn't it?
still am a surfer.
You see those guys take those waves? It's really high adventure in itself.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I think surfing is a wonderful sport, though I never considered it like a sport. It was like a lifestyle, and you're very close to nature. You have to tune into nature to be able to do it well, and it's to be in the salt of the waves breaking, and especially to be inside of the tube of the wave when it's curling over and you're inside the tube.
It's adventure.
It's very adventurous and exciting.
When you're doing surfboarding, you get a chance to push the envelope, get out to the end of that wave
in a
and
certain
take
way,
and where you could take it a more conservative way and be a little safer, or you can really push the envelope and stuff. Is that part of the appeal of surfing?
Sure, you can ride small waves in safe places, or you can go search for the biggest waves that no one's ridden.
Did you stick with the small waves always? Or did
no, I went to Hawaii and went surfing as a teenager.
And you pushed the envelope a little bit?
And, oh yeah, I went to ride the biggest waves I could in the most faraway places, and tried to ride in the tube of the wave, where I felt like I was somewhat in the center of the universe. And when the wave breaks over you and you're in the tube, it seems like things speed up, and you're able to see things in slow motion, and define your movements real well. And even though things are happening real fast, you're looking at it as if it's happening slow in a sort of a way, and that sort of thing is a real thrill, and it sort of opens your mind too.
Is there what part does let's just take a few of the emotions, fear, play in that? Is it better if you don't have, do you have a respect for the wave, or you have a respect for nature in a certain sense, and you know, and then you're overcoming that, you're doing better than that, or what? Fear.
Certainly there's an element of fear.
Because if you got caught in one of those great big waves and you got dashed to the ground, you could be seriously hurt, couldn't you?
Well, the big waves break over you, and you can get hit by your surfboard, or you can get your air knocked out of you, and it's holding you underwater for a long time.
Serious
so you have to
stuff
be able to hold your breath for a long time to stay down, and sometimes you get disoriented about which way is up, and sometimes the big wave breaks. There's so much foam and froth that you can't hardly swim in it, and you really have to be calm and wait for that to pass in order to look for the best place to swim up, and then when you get to the top, you can't just grab air immediately. You have to make sure there isn't a wave that's about ready to break in your face, and you have to get some air real quick because there's more waves coming, and then you have to dive under them.
Right, it's like a challenge. And is there an element of fear in that? Do you ever do any skydiving?
There's an element of fear in that.
Ever doing skydiving?
No.
You don't. No. You're not. It's not just in that. But the fear is there. But it's also a sense of a challenge. You could have stayed home a Sunday afternoon and watched the Brady Bunch on television.
Right. No, I was always very.
You were out pushing the envelope.
Action, adventure oriented.
And you still are. You're an adventurer. Somebody said at the Explorers Club that if you pull off this thing that we're going to be talking about, this 1,000-day Mars nonstop Mars sea venture thing that you're thinking about trying to put together now, that you would be one of the great adventurers in the history of mankind, which is no small matter, because there have been a lot of people who have pushed that envelope. There's something that motivates people to do the extraordinary.
In various ways.
Hillary went up the mountain and that sort of thing, or Magellan, or Columbus or something. It's an exploration, and that was the Explorers Club had those things to say about you. Those are proud words, right?
Yes, it's given me inspiration to go on, and I'm grateful that they recognize me for doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, for what you're doing and have been doing. So anyway, back to the ship. I mean, the Anne, right? It was made lovingly where? Because you said
in North Carolina at my family's beach cottage.
At the beach cottage.
So I was saying that we grew up making surfboards through high school, and then I went to Hawaii and I was surfing there. And while I was surfing in Hawaii as a teenager, I met another teenager who had taken his college money and bought a beautiful wooden sailboat, and he was getting ready to sail into the South Pacific. And we made friends, and he said, "Do you want to come?" And I said, "Yes, of course, I'm ready to go." I had to call my parents on the phone and say...
How old you are now?
I was 19.
19, okay.
And I had to call my parents and say, I want to go sailing in the South Pacific.
Yes.
Will you mail me my birth certificate so I can get a passport? Now my dad, my parents could have said, no, we don't want to let you do that.
Too dangerous, young man.
They could have said, no, we won't mail you your birth certificate. We don't want you to go. You have to go back to college and do what we say do.
That's right, and learn all those intransigent verbs.
Instead, they sent me my birth certificate. I was able to get a passport.
That was your ticket
and
to...
I sailed into the South Pacific.
High adventure, right? For a 19-year-old,
as a couple of
2 years before the mast, all
a couple of teenagers sailing off into the South Pacific.
Wonderful, wonderful.
It was really a great, fun adventure, which I had never been ocean voyaging before that time, only sailing in small sailboats that my father had built. So as a child, I saw my dad build plywood and fiberglass sailboats as a hobby, just little ones, that he took us out in, so that when we saw that, we learned from him, so that when we, that's how we learned how to build surfboards, because our dad built little boats.
I see, from the acorns,
Right.
Yeah.
So
well, now, don't you regret that you got that passport and everything, that you could have gone to college and learned, you know, certified public accounting or something like that? And you wasted all your time sailing out
no,
on
I never have any regrets at all.
Well, that's good, General. That's a good general idea.
Yeah, I always say...
never have any regrets at all? None at all?
No, I've never had any. This has been a thrill, and it's been a strong thing, and no regrets at all. Because I need to know that my life has been totally connected in the past. Now, as I go into the future, this is what I've always thought and what I've always done and what I've always prepared for. So somehow I always knew this in my youngest age, and all of the things that I've been doing have prepared me and led me up to this great moment, and I feel very grateful and lucky for that.
And your life has been a series of great moments.
It's been a series of,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, you got a very in-the-world, immediate now philosophy about things and everything.
Right.
And you're pleased with what you're doing and what you're proposing.
Because I have
and what you've done.
The moment that I go into next is not easy for me. It's where I have to bring up the most in me and who I am, be the smartest and be with the most love in order to survive that next moment.
Be with the most luck?
Love.
Love.
Yes.
Not luck. Love.
Well, no, I said be with the most knowledge and strength and the most love.
Yeah, okay.
Right, because when you are open in love, you see clearly and you act right.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy, general philosophy for everyone. If everyone could only live that way, with no regrets, right? No sense. Doesn't do any good, does it, to lament and all that sort of thing about regrets.
You have to realize that what you've done in the past has made you what you are. There may be some things that I could have done better, and I made some mistakes, but they still led me up to here I am, who I am, getting ready to do what I'm doing, and I think it's the greatest.
Yeah, and you admit that if you might have made a mistake or two?
I've made mistakes.
Can you think of one or two?
Sure, I make mistakes a lot. For instance, my I'm just saying, my crew wants me to be perfect. And when I make a mistake, sometimes they pay the price. Meaning,
that's bad.
If I call the wrong thing to do, then suddenly now they're having to work for an extra half hour on the ropes and the sails in rough weather, and it's cold, and maybe they look at me and say, well, why do we have to do this now? Or you made a mistake, we're having to do this. Or they get mad at me for making mistakes.
Well,
I say, look, I might make mistakes. I'm not perfect. But I'm going to keep doing what I have to do and keep trying and do things right until I know things are under control. I'm going to stick with it and stay focused.
Yeah, and it is a different proposition. If you're taking risk, if you're doing whatever, you're doing an adventuresome thing, and you are at your own cause. You are at your cause over you. But if you start having the effects of what you do affect other people, it brings another dynamic, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, it's more individualistic in a certain sense of, I'll take the risk myself. I'll walk up that mountain. And I did that when I was young, and I got stuck on a mountaintop, and I didn't know I was ever going to survive.
I want my crew to live by a certain standard of excellence, which I try to live by myself. And they ask me, they want to please me. So they might say, well, give me a 10-minute warning on dinner, and when dinner will be served just right. And then I might forget to give that 10 10-minute warning and be in a hurry because I have to go somewhere else. And then I realized I made a mistake. I didn't give the 10-minute warning on dinner, and everything could have been
So it was your fault.
That was last night. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying I make mistakes every day.
And you apologize
a lot.
right here on the air to the people that the dinner didn't come up on time, right?
I do the
what
best
happened?
I
Did
can.
you get the dinner okay? Or
We got the dinner okay.
Oh, you can make up
we got
for
the
it.
dinner down just in time to get up on the dock and do our tango lessons.
All right, that's great. Well, listen, this is really exciting because you're here in New York and you're getting ready. But we have a tape you brought in, right? Do you think it's a good time maybe to show that? Because we got a lot to talk about.
Sure, and I still didn't finish
Go
our
ahead.
line of thought,
Finish.
which was that I sailed into the South Pacific with another teenager.
Yeah.
While we were sailing in the South Pacific, we met the first man to sail around the world without stopping.
Frenchman.
A Frenchman, Bernard Moitessier.
Yeah.
And he had a group of friends who were with him who were young, small boat ocean voyagers who were all people sailing boats with no motor, no radio, no electronics, but they were the best seamen of our time, navigating with old sextants and doing the longest voyages that had been done in history up until that time.
Yeah, you said he went around the world and he came out of Africa and instead of turning north, he went around the world again?
Right.
Was that right?
He would have sailed around the world and gone back to Europe and been a hero, except he said, well, why do I want to do that? He kept sailing from Cape Horn, across the Indian Ocean again, across the Pacific all the way to Tahiti into the South Pacific. No, it was in the South Pacific, in Fiji.
Yeah, you caught up with him and everything, but he was a long-distance sailor. Then.
Yep.
Remember we had the film, The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner? You know, they had a long-distance runner, but the long-distance sailor is sort of like that.
It's way out there. No, the long-distance sailor is in the furthest places that you can possibly be in the whole world.
Like an astronaut?
In a sense, it's very similar to that. We'll get to that
Except you got
later.
more control over the environment, exactly.
Right.
You're
Well,
depending upon you.
so a long-distance sailor is in the furthest places in the world, and often, as it was in the early 70s when I began my long-distance ocean voyaging, we had no radios, no motors, no electronics. So we were out there totally on our own.
No, was that by choice or by economic necessity? Or because
a little bit of both. It could be by economic necessity. Certainly, maybe so.
Foolhardy for you to do that or something?
No, I wouldn't say so. Not at all. When you have the leading long-distance ocean voyagers who led the way for the thousands of sailors who are island hopping around the world now were sailors who were real seamen who knew how to navigate and knew how to boat build and knew how to take care of themselves and did real good long-distance ocean voyages. And so they were the people who I learned from as a teenager.
Oh, that was great.
Everything about sailing and also everything about the right state of mind to live on the sea in these faraway places and to survive in nature without the attitude that you're thinking you've got your satellite telephone or your radio and you're going to call for help if anything goes wrong or punch the button on your emergency satellite beacon. So in those days we didn't have those things, so we developed a sense of independence. No, not really. They didn't exist, and radios were very, very expensive. So it may have been because of financial reasons that they and we sailed that way, but I'm glad we did because that was how I learned with an old sextant and without a radio to call for help.
And following by the stars or something?
You navigate with the stars. You did reckon all the time anyway, but you used the sextant and you get an exact position.
Yeah, like the old
mariners. And then
mariners,
you did reckon through the day.
The ancient mariners
in a certain sense.
Columbus had no radio back to Lisbon. I mean, or back to Seville.
That's what led.
They had to sail into the ocean, Magellan into the Pacific. I mean, what an event!
They never knew if they were going to.
And the Tahitian guys that went to the Eastern Island, they sailed all across the Pacific Ocean in outriggers or something. That's that's a really important sense of adventure. That's part of the human experience. It's a rich tradition that goes back, right?
Yeah.
And it carries on now. It continues to carry on in the person.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that that's what's happening now. The tradition of sailing is what I'm carrying on into the future. As leading up to the schooner, as you were saying, this is what I learned as a teenager, meeting these people in the South Pacific, where we talked about what makes a seaworthy boat. There's certain issues that make a seaworthy boat. And that was when I got in my idea, well, I want my own boat, and yes, I can build my own boat, and yes, I can learn how to use a sextant and be my own captain and be able to navigate and choose to go where I want to go. So,
boy, the metaphors that could be written into that. I mean, there's all kinds of metaphors about individuality.
How many songs are about sailing? How many
channels,
poems
sea
and
channels.
songs,
Oh, yeah, many.
even rock radio, every kind of
Absolutely, yeah.
songs about sailing as
It's
a metaphor,
inherently high adventure,
a
yeah.
metaphor for the human spirit,
Yeah.
being free
And
and
ecology.
following
You're
its
going to be able
goals.
to live out there in the ocean. You're going to be able to live on this, well, we're getting ahead
That's
of
a lot
ourselves,
what
but
it's
you
about.
can live because there's fish, right? A lot of fish in the ocean until we fish them
Right.
all out.
Yep.
They're fishing them all out
There's
with these big
fish,
sea
fish.
trawlers. But it's a
You
high
learn how to
adventure
catch
thing.
fish.
Well,
It's a
this
high
might be a
adventure.
good time. It's really good.
Okay.
And you set some of the tunes. But you brought in a tape for us, right?
Okay.
And this is about 5 minutes long.
5 minutes.
And you can get a look at, because we should maybe say set it up if you don't mind. We set it up where this will show the ship that he built called the Anne, named after his mother, and which he has sailed, I believe if I'm not mistaken, you have sailed it right into Antarctic waters for 6 months.
As far down in the ice as you can
Right
go.
into the ice of the Antarctic and so forth, and sailed all over the world, lived on the thing for most of your adult life and so forth, and have proposed to go on a 1,000-day trip without being inside of land, which he is proposing in this time in which we talk. So let's set up that, let you have a look at the wonder of the sea and the wonder of the ship that was put together by our guest. That's Captain Stowe, Captain Reid Stowe. And let's set up that tape and run it. It runs about 5 minutes. We'll come back. We're talking with Reid. Hang on. We'll be coming right back. Run the tape now then, please, if you would. Thank you.
Most people are afraid of going to sea, I think, because they're afraid of what will happen if they get hurt or they could die. Do you have a positive enough attitude to keep your body under repair and keep yourself healthy for month after month, year after year, knowing that you're not going to see a doctor or get help from the outside? Self-reliance, where you develop the attitude that, yes, you can take care of yourself. You have the tools to keep your physical environment under repair, and also you have to have the tools to keep your body and spiritual environment under repair. Work is progressing real good on the expedition. At the rate we're going to have this boat in incredibly great shape, in a kind of a shape that no one else can understand because no one else has prepared to take a boat to sea for so long. What you see here is a 70-foot gaff rig schooner that I designed and built 25 years ago. The design of this boat comes from the American gaff fishing schooner that would be around 1880 up to the turn of the century. So often I liken it to a Stradivarius violin, which is the finest culmination of craftsmanship along with the magic of music and of the thousands of years of men working on boats. What's going to work with the sails, the pulleys, the ropes? Where should the mast be? What angle should the mast be? And what tension should the rigging cables have? What tension should the ropes have? Exactly where they should go. And that is designed by so many hundreds of people for so many hundreds of years, and it came to one thing, this gaff rig schooner. And as I have her tuned just right, as I've proven her in the waters around the world, she's like a giant Stradivarius violin, and she hums with a certain kind of music just like that instrument. I launched this boat 24 years ago. So basically, I've lived on the boat for 24 years. It was just a natural thing for me, and not really too concerned with, the idea of home and being attached to things. There was nothing I was attached to. I just let everything go. The object of the voyage is to leave the land and all support, sail for 1,000 days non-stop at sea without receiving help, to live at sea, to be healthy, to send back good messages and have the whole world follow the voyage and understand the importance of it, and then we'll be back, sailing back into New York City after 1,000 days. The longest time that I spent on the water was the Odyssey of the Sea Turtle, where we spent 200 days out of sight of land. We did the whole trip without the motor, and when we came back, We still had everything on the boat that we needed to go on for months and months. There would have been no problem to go on for many months more. As people watch me go to sea, their question is, again and again, what do you eat? Dried, natural, organic health food lasts years and years. But the main thing about the diet that makes it work and makes it so good is that I grow my sprouts. I grow all kinds of sprouts. I eat huge sprout salads twice a day. And I catch fish, so I'm eating fresh fish, I'm eating dried fish and salted fish, and I catch the rain from the clouds, and that's the water that I drink. I will be setting off on a course south from New York, across the equator, and then down into the South Atlantic, where I would travel from the west to the east, below South Africa, across the Indian Ocean, below Australia and New Zealand, across the Pacific Ocean, around and under Cape Horn, and then back up into the South Atlantic to the equator, where I'd cross my outgoing track, and that would be one voyage around the world. And then I'd say, well, okay, here I go again, and I'd turn south and I'd head back into the Southern Ocean and head for another trip around the world. So I'm going to choose to sail where I please, far from land and away from all the hazards of ships and the shore.
Oh, that's poet. That's pure poetry. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful tape. Congratulations on all that. I really, it's just got to carry a great deal of attention-getting capability for this world. And so congratulations, all you've done and what you proposed. Now, thanks for setting that up. I really appreciate that. Now, we were talking about your history, that you'd gone down into Antarctica. You've made these sea voyages. A good deal of your adult life has been spent on that ship, has it not? And maybe you could share a little of that. You live on the ship now. You're living on the ship now. This is July 31st of the year 2003, and now you came to the studio here from your ship, which is berthed down on 23rd Street here in Manhattan, right? But you lived a great deal of your life. That's your home, right?
Yeah, it's really my home. Yeah. And I have been captain of my own ocean-going boat since I was 20 years old.
Isn't that great, huh?
Because I built my first boat when I was 1920. After sailing the South Pacific, I went back home to North Carolina and said to my granddad, I want to live in the family beach cottage and build a boat. Because
that was after you made the trip to the South
After I made the trip across the South Pacific.
You had your passport.
I had my passport, and I had most of the knowledge that I needed. I had the knowledge that I needed to build a boat. And since I didn't have much money, I decided to build a very small boat, a catamaran made of plywood and fiberglass.
Right.
And built that under the family beach cottage.
Right.
And I worked on that boat for 8 months straight, never took a break.
Really?
And in the middle of building the boat, one of my friends from the South Pacific, who was sailing by himself for 3 years in the South Pacific, I was 20, he arrived, he was 24, he's from Holland. He said, well, let's take your catamaran to Holland.
To Holland, across the Atlantic
Across the
Ocean.
North Atlantic. I didn't really intend to do it because the boat was so small, and I had no reason. But once he said, let's take it across the North Atlantic, I realized I had a partner who was my, really one of my mentors and teachers. And I believed in him, and with him, he and I would be able to take this boat across the North Atlantic.
Does it make a difference? When I think of the North Atlantic, I think of the, it can be really rough. The North Atlantic can be very cruel sea.
The North Atlantic is very rough.
And what time of year makes a difference?
Well, that's the thing. I was finishing the boat in the spring, and we knew that the only time we could take a boat that small and a catamaran, which is really a dangerous boat to sail at sea. It's 2 hulls.
Yeah.
This was a Polynesian-style catamaran.
That's what they came to Easter Island on, probably.
Right.
Maybe even Thor Heyerdahl all the way to South America.
We knew that the beginning of June would be the one good time that we could take the boat across the North Atlantic, and so we launched the boat, and with no motor, radio, or electronics, we launched her and sailed her out and just went right across the North Atlantic Ocean.
Did you tell anybody you were leaving?
Our family was there and saw us off, and we got
They said
press
good
and
luck?
stories in the newspapers.
Yeah.
They
Like
said good
Lindbergh.
luck,
It's
and
like
they
Lindbergh.
let
It's like Lindbergh going
yeah,
over. Yeah.
they were supportive and let me do what I was doing, and I was mostly moving fast enough that they really couldn't keep up with what I was doing, and not too sure
Did
about
they ever
it.
accuse you of being foolhardy, young man?
Well, not in a way.
No.
Maybe that I should be going to college, and I should be a better example for my younger relatives who were
Getting that
following
degree in
me
accounting or
and so forth.
Stable,
Right.
something stable.
Right.
Doctor.
But
Be
on
a
the
doctor.
other hand, they saw that I was serious about what I was doing,
Right.
and that I knew what I was doing, and that I had good people around me, and that we had a good plan, and they believed in me, and they helped support and let me live my life as I wanted to do. So they were supportive of me as I sailed off.
All right. You've seen the movie, I take it, The Perfect Storm.
I've seen the movie The
What do you
Perfect
think
Storm.
about The Perfect Storm? That's man against the sea, and the sea won.
Right. Well,
You know, and now what if you'd been in The Perfect Storm, young man? That would have
Right.
been the end of Reid. That would have been the end of Reid if you had foolishly gone off into the face of the perfect storm and got capsized out in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
You would have been Davy Jones' locker, right?
But in the beginning of the summer, you don't really have those kinds of storms.
Oh, I see.
You can study the pilot charts of the world, and you can see how the winds and wave goes as they've been recorded for 200 years, and then you can get where the wind and currents go, the temperatures, water temperatures, and the ratio of gales and how bad they are, and so forth. So at that time of year is the time when there's very light wind, there isn't much wind, and there's no real gales that happen. So we knew that was the one time we could go across. So we weren't sailing the perfect storm
in the month of June.
In the month of June, the perfect storm was a bit more to the north, actually, and later in the season.
But you wouldn't have wanted to have been in that.
Not in that boat. The boat I have now can ride the perfect storm.
Oh, come on. It couldn't have gotten through that thing the way they depicted it and everything, could they?
Certainly
You don't
it
think
could
the
have.
storm could have done you don't think no storm could do in your boat? Because that storm was supposed to be the worst storm ever.
Well,
and you don't think
certainly-
nature could overdo your boat? You think your boat is invincible?
It certainly could. I believe in the boat so completely and thoroughly. What the boat is a steel and fiberglass bottle. And I've let the big waves break over her, let them break over her again and again. She's going to just come right back up like a duck and shed the water.
Really?
And she'll keep floating, and as long as things don't breaking, as long as I don't get a hole in the boat, as long as I don't hurt myself falling all over as the boat tumbles all around, then this boat will ride out that kind of weather.
What's the worst storm? You ever been in a force 6 or force 8,
well,
force 9 wind or anything? A hurricane or anything
I've been
like
in a
that?
hurricane.
In a hurricane, a full-fledged hurricane at sea in this boat.
At sea in this boat.
Good God.
And I didn't even know it was a hurricane.
You didn't?
I have a VHF radio, which is line of sight, which means as far as you can see, you can talk.
Yeah.
And so we were in this big storm, and I saw a ship. And I said to the ship, you do see us. We don't have up our sails. We don't have the ability to maneuver. You're going to go around us, right?
You didn't have an engine.
They answered back, yes, I do have a motor, and in a big sea, in a big storm, it would be very hard to use the motor.
It would be. Okay, you understand.
Right, because
I
the
don't
sailboat
know.
doesn't have a big motor like a ship. It has a smaller motor.
I see,
I
right.
could maneuver the boat in a certain way. Yes.
Right.
But I didn't want to have to do that. I called the ship to say, well, do you see us? And you're going to miss us. You're on a course that's not converging with us. And they answered back, yes. They said, yes, we're on a course to miss you. We can't change course either. We're in Hurricane Katrina, and the wind is blowing 85, 90 knots. And then he said, okay, sign over and out. And he hung up on us, and I said, wow, we're in a hurricane. Look how good we're doing. This isn't so bad, is it? The boat's riding just like she should. She was riding out that hurricane. At that time, the wind was coming up from the south. We had one sail in the middle of the boat that was real small, that kept the boat steadied against the wind, and the wind was blowing on the boat. We were heaved to. The wheel was turned over and lashed. The wind was blowing on the sail in a certain way that kept us steady facing the storm.
Facing it.
Facing
into
the
it.
storm.
That's the way to
Facing
do it,
into the
right?
storm, and the waves were breaking with us. That's the way to do it when the storm is against you. When the storm, then the next morning, We were in the eye of the hurricane.
Right in the eye. It's calm.
Right in the eye. Well, it's not so calm.
Not so calm
The
in the eye of the
wind
hurricane?
stops, but the waves break from every direction.
Do they?
So now the boat
It's like a maelstrom.
Now the boat is getting rocked, and waves are breaking over her from every direction, but the sun is out, and the sky is blue.
Weird,
and then
huh?
we saw the next wall of the hurricane
Yeah.
coming from the north. So we knew it was coming from the north. We were headed to the south.
Yeah.
And so we got a small sail ready in the very front of the boat.
Yeah.
And when the wind
That's
hit,
a jib?
it was a jib would be in the very front.
Yeah.
A staysail is behind the jib. The staysail is closer in, and it's smaller, and it's on a boom. And we set that sail. So when the wind hit us from the north, we had that sail set.
Yeah.
I was up front. I told my crew member, when the wind hits, guide the boat any direction between southeast and southwest. Whatever the wind tells you to do, just drive the boat with the wind. I didn't care what course we were on.
Not into the wind.
No, this time we're going with the wind because we had the sail up front.
I see.
So by the time I crawled back on the deck because it was the wind
You
was
got to make
blowing
sure
so hard.
You got to make sure you don't get pushed overboard, right?
Well, we have high
I know.
lifelines and safety harnesses, and you're having to crawl, and you
The
can
harness
imagine
is
with the wind.
connected to the rigging?
The harness is connected to the rigging or someplace solid on the boat, and you're
Okay.
harnessed in.
I'm glad to know that.
And so
yeah.
by the time I crawled back to the wheel, he was on the wheel and driving the boat downwind.
Yeah.
And I took the wheel from him, and then I felt the wheel. And the boat was balanced running downwind.
Yeah.
We were on course, the course that I wanted to go southeast to Antigua, where we were going down to Agents Week to put the boat up for the charter season in the Caribbean.
All right.
So I felt the wheel, the boat was balancing. I just put ropes over the wheel, and we went inside, and the boat held her course so we could all
You
go
went and took a
inside
nap or something?
and rest. We take turns. You have to take naps or you
Yeah,
get
I
too
suppose
tired.
you do.
You
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
take naps and
Yeah.
you have to rest. And you want to know the boat is doing what you want her to do,
Yeah.
that she's holding the course
And
that
once
you
it's
want to
doing that,
hold.
do you get a feel for that boat? You must get a feel
you
like you
get
do with the surfboard. You get a feel for it that it's doing what it's supposed
But
to do.
we're in the storm. We've got a little sail up, boat's holding her course, but we're going fast. And the sensation you get is one wave is coming right after the next. There's one big wave coming. It's coming so fast. The next thing you know, you're up. Whoa, on top of it.
surfing?
And
Is it
then
like
it passes
surfing?
you.
It's like surfing?
It pushes you along for a while
Yeah.
at the top, but the boat's heavier
At
and
the
she's
top,
not traveling and catching it like a surfboard.
Yeah.
And then the wave passes, and then you go back down to the bottom
On the
like
surf.
that.
Do you ever
So you're
get
going up
seasick?
and down a
Do you ever
lot.
get seasick? I think I
I'm
get
lucky
seasick.
I've
I
never
get
gotten
seasick
seasick.
listening to you almost.
No,
there.
I'm lucky. I've never gotten seasick.
Never gotten seasick.
So we rode that hurricane out,
Uh-huh.
and the boat did a really great job, and I was really pleased with the boat, and it built up my confidence a lot in myself and in the boat.
Yeah.
Enough so that I could plan into the future and say, I'm going to go as far around the world as I want to go, and I know the boat can do it, and I know I can do it. And we did go to Antarctica all the way down into the ice.
Now,
as far
when
as
was
we
that?
could go.
When
And-
was that? You decided to go to Antarctica, for crying out loud. I mean,
Well,
that's down.
well,
that's you've got icebergs. You remember the Titanic hit an
Right.
iceberg, and say,
Right.
couldn't you have hit an iceberg or something? And isn't it dangerous for sailing into ice-filled waters?
Oh, it's really dangerous. That's why
Seems
no
that
one
way
does
to
it.
me.
That's why no one had done it. I mean, in '86 when
Do you
I
ever
went,
hear
I
the
never
saying,
didn't know another
have you
American
ever-
yacht that
yeah,
had
have
gone.
you ever heard the saying, "Fools rush in where angels fear to tread"? You ever get
Well-
accused of that, young man?
No,
No?
I haven't been
You've heard the
accused of
expression,
that.
right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
okay, yeah.
Well, I can
Yeah.
say about the preparations that
Yeah.
that we took for that voyage. Just going back a little bit,
Yeah.
the first boat that I built was very small because my budget was smaller and I was learning how to build boats and so forth. But it was the smallest boat to cross the Atlantic Ocean twice. We went to Europe.
Is that the catamaran?
The catamaran.
Yeah.
Europe, Africa, southern Brazil, a year up the Amazon
And
River.
what are you, 23 years old?
22 years
20
old during that time.
And you could have been at school studying accounting.
Well, I always thought with words and
Yes.
studied learning,
yeah.
leave them at the language
Yeah.
door and close it, open the love window
Yeah.
and let the moon's wisdom in.
Yeah. Have you learned anything, do you think, in all of this? You know, is
Of
there
course,
anything to
you're
learn
learning
here?
all the time. You're in a forced situation
Yeah.
to learn.
Uh-huh.
Not a situation where you might learn a bit, okay. I'm in a situation where I'm in a little boat. I'm in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I'm perhaps by myself, and I did sail by myself.
Yeah,
that means that I'm forced to learn, and do the best I can all the time, or I'm in a situation where I could suffer and die. And so because of that...
Now wait a minute. What do you have to learn? I mean, you have to catch a fish.
That's not easy. That's a whole art.
Yeah, I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah,
right.
it is, yeah. Because but isn't the ocean full of fish? Can you just go fishing like we go fishing off Long Island or something and get fish on a regular basis?
Not
you're
as
out in the
simple
middle
as
of
that.
the ocean?
No, it's not as simple as that. No, fishing...
Do you do it with line and tackle, or you do it with line and tackle when you're fishing in the great ocean?
Yes.
You do it with line and tackle.
Right.
Well, you get a tuna fish. You get a big fish or something.
They break the line just like that.
They would break the line. You don't have strong line to do that.
Even if you have real strong line.
And is it always, you're going in a boat by yourself. Let's just get this straight, ecology or something like that. You're going to go on a boat and you're going to be by yourself, or maybe one member, or you had a couple people there or something, and you're going to go, and you are going to live off the sea in terms of sustenance and so forth. Fish, you're going to catch the water and store it in the tanks and so forth. And you're going to have alfalfa sprouts and other sprouts and so forth you're going to eat and that sort of thing, a few things. But you're going to be able to live on the sea, what the sea has to offer.
Well, to a certain extent, yes.
Yeah.
But
now, how far does that go, that you don't have to have a line to the land in order to be able to sustain human society? What happens if you get into where you've got a real crew, like Columbus and so forth, and that kind of thing? They were sailing men. They were sailing people. Or the people from Polynesia sailed across the great Pacific Ocean. I mean, can they live off the sea? Can you do it? Or is it, because it seems awfully big, the Pacific Ocean, or the ocean. You know what I mean?
Can you live off the sea to a certain extent, but that's not really what I'm trying to do. I will catch the rain and I will catch fish, but I'll have, like I said in the film, natural organic health food, and I'll have really good healthy food that I'll be eating, and I'll have more than enough on board. So it's not really that I have to survive off the sea. I supplement my diet with fish, which I catch regularly, and I eat a lot of fish. When I catch a big fish, I slice it and dry it, and then I can eat fish for months later.
You can dry fish on the boat
I dry
that you catch and so forth, and then that'll keep in the same way they could have done it in Columbus's day?
What
I was getting at, is it inherently impossible for people to just live off the sea on a ship? Or if they were really ship-shape and so forth, are we tied to the land in order to be able to sustain ourselves? You catch the water, you know what I'm saying?
I catch the rain, and I catch fish.
What are you dependent upon?
I bring
just
all of that with me.
Yeah.
I bring all of that with me, and to have a healthy diet, the sprouts are real important, and I'll be bringing vitamins and minerals also. To stock the boat up for 1,000 days, is not so hard. It's just a bit of thinking and planning and getting the right food on board, and it only amounts to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, maximum 6,000 pounds of food. A 70-foot schooner can carry 30,000 pounds and go down 1 foot on her waterline. So it's not an issue for me how much good food I'm able to bring. It's easy for me to bring enough. I might bring as much coal and firewood as
That's what I was going to ask you.
Food.
You had a picture in there of the stove burning, which is really nice on a cold night. I would think to have a stove on the ship and everything, building a fire. I like it up in Vermont.
The fire is the greatest thing.
Yeah, but you have to bring that with you.
Bring the wood and coal.
You don't find any logs floating or anything,
you see things like that now and then, but not really. If I wanted wood, I'd sail up to the mouth of the Amazon River. There's a lot of wood coming out of there.
I suppose
all the time. There's big wood, lots of wood coming out, so I could replenish my wood there
if you wanted to, or something like that.
If I wanted to.
But and we want to move. It's so exciting. It really is. Congratulations. What a great way to live. It seems to me, in a certain way, it's really exciting inspiration to people who are thinking about whether they want to become a sailing man who sails around the world or take certified public accounting. I don't know which way they want to go, but anyway, it's very exciting. But this specific project you're working on, let's see if I got it right. 1,000 days, nonstop, Mars Sea Odyssey. Is that it?
Mars Ocean Odyssey.
Right,
1,000 days nonstop at sea. As you were saying, this is the longest nonstop voyage in history.
This is what you're proposing.
That's what I'm preparing to do.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Now,
we know the history of man on the sea very, very precisely. We know that in Columbus's day, nothing much happened before their time where people could have gone longer at sea. We know that the smartest and brightest sailors of their age, by the time they were a month at sea, they were dying of scurvy. They didn't know about these things. We know that perhaps ancient people
Vitamin C,
could have gone to far places around the world following the coast. They say the Phoenicians could have done this, the Chinese could have done that.
Yeah,
but sailing out across the sea wasn't really done before the Vikings.
Well,
we know what they did, and Columbus's time.
Yeah, but Columbus, like I said to you the other night on the ship, Columbus sailed 33 days out of the Canary Islands, and that crew was freaking out, including the Pinzon brothers, who captained the other two ships.
Later, when they tried to sail south of the equator, men were dying at the equator from bad food and from scurvy.
Yeah, but the point being is that they were really nervous about sailing out into the great ocean. You know, the great ocean sea, because I mean they didn't know they didn't routinely take those trips. How in the hell Magellan could have gone across the Pacific is really staggering to me, isn't it to you, in terms of that? But we've learned a lot now, and we've got a record. What's the record set? Is there a record set by, let's say, the one you're going to try and set in a certain sense, and you're proposing, it's going to be away from sight of land?
Yes.
For the longest time that a human being has ever done that, and you've tied it into Mars, because that's about the same amount of time it takes a ship to go to Mars. So you're tying it into an astronaut's loneliness of a long-distance astronaut?
It's an interesting comparison. When I read space psychology, I realized they were supposing a lot of things that I knew from my years of experience on the high seas. And the sea is the sky and the ocean moving. There's no land around you. It's really a lot like being in space.
Yes, I would have
And your ability to adapt to that extreme, isolated environment for an extended period of time has a lot of similarities to what it will be like to go into space.
Do you think it would be like a monk in a monastery? With interior consciousness and spirituality things?
That's the sort of thing that sustains you in that austere environment where there is nothing else at all but elements of nature too harsh to exist out there. So you have yourself and your rich inner world and your environment that's around you, your little spaceship or your little boat, which is like a little spaceship.
Yeah, that's right. It is like a spaceship, and things have to be ship-shaped, too. And you have to know what you're doing in order to be able to function in a proposed way. Now, this French fellow that you met out in the Pacific, what was his name, who had set the world's record?
Bernard Moitessier.
That's it, right. Now, he had set a world record in terms of time at sea and so forth?
Right, around the world in a half in about a year's time. So when I decided I was going to Antarctica, which is the ultimate voyage for a small sailboat.
You did do
you
that.
can't go further away than that.
That's right.
Yeah. So I said, well, what will I do after that whereby I will continue to evolve? I didn't see it as that I want to challenge myself or set records.
You don't see that?
No, I don't. I see what I'm doing is what I could see that I could evolve myself and mankind. Mankind watches. The press is there, the stories are there, people follow it. And I gear a lot of what I'm doing towards inspiring kids and teaching kids that they would have to learn the subjects they're learning in school, in junior high, whether they know why or not, if they want to be able to follow their own dream. But what I do, every subject that they're learning in school is what I had to learn in order to do what I do.
So you're not going to encourage all those kids to quit school and run away and do some adventuring out on the high seas and learn from the seat of their pants and so forth?
They won't have the ability to do that. I would say stay in school and learn and study.
Yeah, but you didn't go to school, young man. You did not go to graduate school. You didn't go to the university. I mean, everybody goes to the university now and learns to be an accountant or something. But you went off in the high seas, and you would inspire the youth to go off on a life of adventure.
If that sort of thing could happen for them in their lives, if they were lucky enough to have those opportunities, then it would be a great inspiration for them.
You think it would be a great inspiration for the youth in order for them to think that way? To live the life of an adventurer.
The life of an adventurer is not as easy as you think.
I know.
It's a lot of hard work, and it's built
A lot of
upon
disappointment.
skills.
Yes,
It's
right.
not. It's not just a crazy adventure that you do. It's built upon carpentry skills, navigational skills, and the list of physical skills, the knowing about food and nutrition, and knowing about yourself and how you can react in certain situations and so forth, or you won't make it very far.
Yeah, you wouldn't make it very far, and you're learning self-sufficiency, which is that's a good thing to teach in this time and age. Self-sufficiency. You think it is a good thing to have a sense of self-sufficiency.
Learning how to use alternative energy, learning how to adapt to the environment without hurting the environment, and so forth.
You have a real feel for the environment and for ecology, huh? You think of yourself as an ecologist, and because you're living close to it, right?
I'm those are just small aspects of what I am. Because I'm on the cutting edge, I have to use all of those things, but I'm really one step beyond them. People take sailboats to sea, and they do education, and they do ecology and all of that. But they do this normal things that's what sailors do. I'm more of an extreme sportsman, an extreme athlete, and a visionary. So I'm doing what's never been done before.
I see.
I've been doing what's never been done before. So ecology is an issue that's part of me.
Yes.
But the real important thing is to be able to combine everything and take a step where no one's ever been before.
You want to take that step where no one's ever gone before. You're an adventurer like that sort of thing. So do you relate yourself, or do you relate in your consciousness or in your experience and so forth with the yachting group, the yachters, people who do yachting? And, you know, the America's Cup and that sort of thing?
No,
and
not
everything?
at all.
And what sets you aside from the yachting class, as it were, and so forth, in your estimation?
Well, they're mostly about speed.
Yeah.
They're trying to do speed.
Yeah.
And mostly they're jocks. And jocks think about things. Jocks are athletes who think athletic things and do athletic talk. They're not people who've had months and years separated from society so that they could develop an inner philosophy that takes them to a way of thinking that's different than sportive thinking, which is tied into the media, which is tied into the clubs and all of this sort of stuff. They haven't had a chance to break away and understand something that's different than the normal knowledge that they're all connected to.
So they're part of the norm, actually. In a
I
certain
see them
sense.
more as part of the
Who would you associate with? Downhill racers, astronauts, you know, adventure mountain climbers, or people that do exploration? The Explorers Club is a natural place for you to maybe find colleagues of the mind or something like that.
Some people from different, that do different adventures around the world pass through the Explorers Club and speak at the Explorers Club.
Do you see it's
forth.
physical in that? Do you see yourself part of the Explorers Club like Einstein, 1905, wrote the theory of special relativity? Intellectual explorers, people that come up with new ideas and thinking. Do you feel association with that kind of daring do, which is involved with intellectual exploration, or even, let's say, political exploration? People that are trying to lead a nation or a group or something into some sort of a new way, leadership, Gandhi or something like that, who had a course. Would you associate with that kind of thing, or is it physical?
I think about them.
I don't mean to pry, you know.
When I sailed the smallest boat across the Atlantic Ocean, I had to leave all things behind in order to adapt to that moment the best that I could. And so now with me preparing for the longest nonstop voyage in history, where I depart the touch of the terra firma, I depart the touch of the land longer than any human ever has.
What is that?
Depart the touch of the terra firma.
That's nice. That's
Humans
poetry,
cling
right?
to caves.
Yes,
they live
right.
in caves. They
Yeah.
cling to their houses. They cling to materiality. And I'm leaving that all behind. I'm not going to touch the earth for longer than any human ever has.
Touch the terra firma.
Touch the solid ground.
The ocean is
the
part of the
solid
earth.
ground.
Yeah, right,
okay,
right,
I'm going to be out away from touching the solid ground.
Yes, for 1,000 days.
For 1,000 days. So my ability to do
outside
that,
of land, outside of
sight of land. It's easier for me that way to stay away from land. When you come near the land, you have more hazards, more ships, more rocks, more reefs, more changing weather, more shallow water, different kinds of waves, shipping lanes and ships. When I'm out on the high seas, it's actually easier for me out there to be sailing because I'm not dodging those
now
things.
You're thinking of actually doing that within the months ahead. You said maybe even in the autumn of this year, 2003, you might launch or something.
We've set November the 15th at noon as the date we're going to go, and So we've got a lot of people rallying around that to help us. We're still looking for a major sponsor to help support the voyage, and we're looking for a major media company that will get us the satellite equipment so that I can do a live show from the boat.
Great. Okay. So, great. That's great. You're going to have. It's going to be public access from the boat out on the ocean sea, and you're going to be able to connect via the internet. You're going to have a website that's going to be tracking this thing.
Right.
And is the website that you're going to have there on the? You're going to have a web. You're going to have a. You don't have electricity. You have some way of generating electricity. You have electricity, a generator or something.
Yeah.
On board.
Well, the sun and the wind. And the water, it's all alternative.
Do you generate your electricity from alternative sources?
I generate my electricity from alternative sources.
It's like the biosphere.
It goes into a battery, and from the battery, I can run satellite telephone, video, and project video.
You can project and receive, and you're going to be linked into the internet multimedia capability, high speed, Wi-Fi, high speed, like you're going to be broadband connection to the internet, both feed in and out from your site.
And the best possible that we can do, it depends on the relationship that we're able to develop
with
a sponsor and a media company who wants to develop the content from the longest voyage in history.
Yeah.
Because we've already seen by the incredible amount of press that I've gotten in all magazines around the world.
We haven't had a chance. You got a big stack of
I have
stuff
a huge stack of press from around the world.
Right.
The writers are interested, the editors are interested, the stories go out around the world, people are interested. People can understand it no matter what their level of thinking is. From every walk of
Anybody
life,
could understand
here
that.
is someone who's out at sea longer than anyone's ever been.
Yeah.
They didn't think it was possible. How is it possible for him to do? What is he doing?
And you're going to be able to, well, you see, we only got a couple minutes left. Sorry, I could talk for 16 hours easy. But the thing is, you're going to be in steady communication with the world via the internet from that boat, little boat floating out
via
in the
internet.
What drama?
Yeah.
What drama? We didn't have any connection with Lindbergh.
Oh, and I'll entertain you in a lot of different ways.
You're going to have something to say? And you're also an artist. You're going to do some creating
I'm a painter, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, I'm a teacher. I'm an educational person. I've spent many years talking to kids, and I've spoken at many universities
and
about
you would
what
be able
I'm
to
doing.
communicate to the world via the internet in high broadband.
Not just via the internet, but I hope via
satellite.
A media company.
Yeah, media
who's putting it on television.
Yeah. Well, it would be on
showing it on television.
Yeah, but things are on television. It's like on the internet now. You're on television. People could check in with you. And people, the nightly news could have their check-in with Reid every night. They could say, Reid, how's it going? Well, I'm out here with the dolphin, or I'm in the middle, you know, like that sort of thing. It would be something that would really be an inspiration to a whole lot of people among the 6 billion people in this world who's looking for inspiration. Maybe you could pull that thing off. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I really think it's an exciting kind of proposition you've done, and what an interesting life. And I really enjoyed that. There's so many questions that come to my mind, but it's high adventure, and I really thank you really very much for coming in to this program.
My
pleasure. I wish you all the best, and anyone who's out there in the environment, we're going to put contact information here at the end, so somebody who might be interested can contact him. And then they're also looking for some media people who might be interested in picking up and communicating this incredible odyssey. Odysseus didn't have it. Columbus didn't have it. Vasco da Gama didn't have it. None of them had it, but you would have it, a connection back to the world like that. It seems to me a really important learning experience that you'll be able to present back to the world, and I wish you all the best. And thanks a lot for coming in for this program.
Great.
And I remind you, in the cable audience, it's been your pleasure to have the Perceptions then. Reid Stowe, Captain Courageous Reid Stowe, incredible human being who's had a great and exciting and inspirational existence up to now, and it proves it tends to look like it's going to be even more exciting as he moves into the future. Happy to be able to bring you those perceptions. We're in Conversations. Invite you to tune in. We'll be coming back again next week. That's it for now. But once again, Reid, thanks very, very, very much indeed.
Okay. My pleasure.
My pleasure.